everybody, how's it going today? Glowplasma231 here, back again today to talk about Oshi no Ko. And today we are finally covering Interlude number 4. And this is big because this is going to be our last interlude, our last mini chapter break before getting back to regularly scheduled Oshi no Ko of chapter number 127. But like I said, today is Interlude number 4. This chapter got released earlier today, and because of that, it is time for me to talk about it. And as we all know, these interludes, like I said, have been in between breaks that we've been getting while the actual writer of Oshi no Ko, Aka Akasaka, is taking off for a few weeks, about a month and a half just to do some other things. And during this time, we've been getting these mini chapters, the past 3, which have been focused on Mimcho, Melt, Kana, and Akane. Those were both in one chapter. So those 3 chapters are all 6 pages each, and covering some aspect of those characters featured within them. But today, with Interlude number 4, we actually have an 8-page chapter. And with this 8-page chapter, it actually is focused on Aqua and Ruby, our 2 main characters of the series. So I thought this was very interesting as soon as I opened the chapter, because of course, my prediction was it was going to be all focusing on sort of less important characters, and then the last 2 have literally been about the main 4 characters, which I find is a little funny. But like I said, this is just 8 pages focusing on Aqua and Ruby. After we can definitely tell this is after the big reveal of them knowing who each other are, right? But I don't really have too much else to say in the precursor to the chapter, but let's just hop into it. So we pretty much see that Aqua is sitting down and he's just reading like a medical book, as we see. It's a book called Introduction to Medical Science. So I guess it's very boring, but it makes sense for Aqua, being that of course he was Guru in his previous life, so it makes perfect sense there, right? Of course a doctor would continue to look at doctoring things, right? And we see Ruby walk by, and apparently it looks like it's on the couch or in the kitchen or something, right? But we see Ruby walk by, and she's just like, oh man, he's reading some books again, right? So she comes up behind him and sort of just like puts her arms around him, sort of like gives him a little bit of a hug from behind, right? And as all of this is happening, Aqua's like, hey, it tickles. And Ruby's like, well, what are you talking about? And he's just like, your hair, right? And Ruby makes the assertion like, you don't normally say that, right? And as all this is going on, Aqua sort of just like finally turns around and looks at her and is like, oh, I mean, for some reason it's way more silky than before, right? And we sort of see Ruby say somewhere, it's like, so you noticed I got a hair quality improvement treatment, right? Isn't it so beautiful, right? And Aqua's like, oh, yeah. I mean, it's a nuisance if you let your hair loose at home. Why don't you normally just tie it up, right? And we see that Ruby gets very upset at Aqua for this. And she's just sort of like running away and sort of just like thuds off and just like, I mean, that's the sound effects. It's like thud, 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 thud. But runs off. She runs like, hey, speak to yourself. Why don't you cut those long bangs of yours? Like, and she's like, it's just depressing looking at him, right? And Aqua's like, oh, well, what is she talking about? Like, what's wrong with her? I don't get it at all, right? I find that pretty funny because, like, Aqua's haircut is definitely like just the emo kid haircut. Like, it's like his bangs are over his eyes and it's like a short bob cut besides for that. So him just being like, oh, what's wrong with her? Like, why are my bangs so bad, right? As we sort of just see that Ruby runs into her room and sort of just lies on her bed and just like is laying there just like, Sensei, you dummy. As we see she's sort of just like crying on her bed. An interesting thing to note about this entire sort of scene is that the entire time Ruby does have her light starring gun while Aqua has the dark one, showing that, yeah, Ruby is going on the path of good to path of light after the whole ordeal, and has not sort of shifted back over to the dark side yet. But we sort of just get like a mini flashback back with Guru the Doctor and Serena, of course, these 2 characters' previous like lives, as we sort of just see that Guru one day is just like talking to Serena, is like, man, ice charms. She's got 500 million of them, and we sort of just get this like idea where it's like, she's got 500 million of them, and it's like a geek ridiculously large numbers. It's like, oh, what is that supposed to mean? Like, I don't know if it's supposed to say like she's got 500 million of them, but we sort of see what the whole point is in Gordon's like, she's got 500 million of them, but that smooth, silky, long hair is definitely crucial, right? And he's just like, when it shakes on stage and my eyes will fall, she must go to a hair salon 3 times a week and get some good old special treatment, right? And at this point, Goro sort of looks over to Serena. He's like, oh boy, she doesn't have any hair. As we sort of just see, like, Goro's just, like, freaking out, like, oh no, what have I done, right? And he's like, oh my gosh, I'm such an idiot. I'm sorry, how insensitive. And he's like, as a doctor, I failed. No, as a person, just slap me to your heart's content, Serena-chan, right? Sort of just, like, apologizing for all of this. As we sort of just, like, in another way, cut back to when Serena was with her mother. I forget, Marina? Yeah, it was Marina Tendoji. And we pretty much see, like, whenever she was really young, before she was admitted to the hospital, we sort of get this little idea where she's like, hey, why can't I grow up my hair, Mom? I want to have it as long as I did. Like, that's my dream, right? And her mother's like, oh, hey, stop troubling your mother. Your hair will become a burden if you're hospitalized, so let's just go and cut it, right? And we see that it's cut, and she's like, hey, doesn't the short hair look super good on you? As it is this sort of really big idea of just saying, yeah, so pretty much Marino is a really bad mother. And that's pretty much the long and short of it, right? But sort of back in not the present, but like the other present at the hospital, we see Serena just like sort of smiles like, hey, Sensei, I'll try growing out my hair sometime. If I have long hair, it might even look identical to I. And we sort of see the two looking at each other and smiling. It's a sort of cute thing. As eventually Gore's like, hey, that could be very bad, huh? And Serena's like, oh, well, would your favorite idol change in that case? But he's just like, no, it'd just mean I'd have more than one favorite idol. So that's a pretty fun thing. And we sort of see that in the actual present where Aqua had just said the whole thing to Ruby of, hey, the hair looks bad, why don't you tie it up? We sort of see that Aqua remembers that from his time as the doctor and is like, oh my gosh, I'm such a big fool. And we even get like this little note of like just an arrow pointing up just going, he remembered, as he's just like, oh no, I'm such an idiot, right? And he's like, somebody kill me over here. And we all see this little brief thing of just Miyako going, walking by and just being like, hey, Aqua, are you okay, right? But at this point, we sort of just flash to the next day as we see that apparently Ruby has just gotten out of the bath and is like, oh man, thanks for the bath. As she sort of is talking over to Miyako and is like, hey, thank you very much. He's like, man, I'm beat. I had a super packed schedule again today. And she's like, even after taking a bath like that, I still have a bunch of things I needed to get ready for tomorrow. And Miyako's like, oh, hey, well, you should go to sleep fairly soon. Like, don't stay up all night, like, recording and doing all of that sort of thing. And all of a sudden, Ruby is just sitting here, and all of a sudden, there's just like a vroom, vroom, vroom sort of noise that just builds up. And all of a sudden, we see that Aqua has a blow dryer and is blow drying Ruby's hair, right? As we see Ruby's just like, oh, cool. As she turns around, she's like, oh, hey, bro, don't move. And it's like, okay, that works. But we pretty much see she's just sitting here, and I'll be like, hey, long hair suits you. It seems I have another favorite idol. As we see Ruby sort of just cries a little bit, and just like, ha, ha, ha. And that's sort of just the end of this little short chapter. Again, this one's actually 8 pages, so it's a lot different than the other interlude chapters we've had. So altogether, I think that makes it, what, if we had 18 pages before and we have this, what's that, 26 pages of content? So it's like not even like, it's like a chapter and like 2 or 3 pages. It's not really much more than a normal chapter actually is. I mean, it's sort of getting to the point where it's like, yeah, this would be maybe 2 chapters of My Hero, right? With how it's been doing recently. But it's just a little fun chapter about Ruby's hair, so that's pretty cool. There's been a big outcry of this chapter online in the few hours it's been out, because of the whole, like, thing of, like, oh no, do Ruby and Aqua like each other? Are they brother and sister? Well, what's going on here, right? And just, like, that whole question and idea of everything. And a lot of people seem to, like, be making a joke about it, which they think is funny. But, like, it's almost like they're bringing it into the world whenever they speak about it. So, really, whatever your opinion on that is, as it goes. I thought this was fine. I personally still like the Melt one the best, but sort of seeing our 2 main characters here and sort of just like a small scene that we probably wouldn't need to see otherwise, it's alright. And with that, our next chapter is actually coming out in 2 weeks once again, so we're going to have another little bit of a break here. So next chapter will be coming out on September 20th of 2023. So 2 weeks from now, we'll finally get chapter number 127. I did sort of like the interlude chapters while they ran, but not really enough to really care that much about it. But if you had any strong opinions on this chapter, I mean, what do you think? Bro, don't move. Well, what does that mean? I mean, if you want to comment down below and tell me, you can. But with that, this was Oshi no Ko, interlude number 4. If you liked the video, hopefully you won't mind subscribing, putting a comment down below, or doing any of that sort of good stuff. And with that, I'm Glowplasma231. This has been Oshi no Ko, interlude 4, and I'm going to be seeing you later. So Glowplasma231, out.